If you've been following, this is Chapter 3 of Children of Light. It's called Mission Z. We heard a little bit about Mission Z in the last chapter, but now we're going to find out more. Here we go. From the time Celia arrived until her 30th birthday, many of the scheduled tasks were accomplished for Mission Z. A small base was established on Mars, but the atmosphere was too unstable for a launch, and only 3 people were living in an experimental station. Mars had never been considered for Mission Z. Mission Z was the ultimate goal of Earth and the Moon space station. The design for the launch and launch site were completed and tested. The ship partially built and tested, but it needed assembling, some fine-tuning, and wiring of interior mechanisms. Robots and droids still were being improved. The light speed mechanism and gravity chamber were tested, and the designs were set. Improvements on everything were constantly being made. The crew for Mission Z had been chosen. They were to spend the last year on Earth's solar system, on the space station, as their final test. The Mission Z crew would also assist in final assembly processes for the launch site and spacecraft. The testing period of the space station was over the day after Celia's 30th birthday, in order that conclusions could be made and technology could be shared. And then everyone would know how close to realizing Mission Z they were, in order that they could set a date and find a crew. After a year of comparing notes, answering questions, and testing, 5 men from the original moon base mission would be allowed to visit Earth each year. The men would go through a few more tests and comparing notes for the first few months after returning to Earth. After the testing, they would be free to do as they chose. They would, for the most part, be analyzed by psychs and physicians to determine their well-being, mentally as well as physically, to see if any changes were needed to be made in the space station and on the designs for the Zeus, the space vehicle for Mission Z. Celia would never return to Earth. She was the permanent hostess of the space station on the moon. The guys joked with her and used a fanciful nickname for her when she was being too overprotective of her boys. They would call her Mother Moon. She liked her nickname, and the name often lightened the mood and helped everyone relax. Mother Moon had to stay home with her other boys, and she didn't really mind because it was the happiest she had been in her entire life. She decided if she went back to Earth, she would probably spend the rest of her life in jail or die. She had no desire to see the Earth or anyone on it. She just wanted all her boys to return safely home to the moon. By the time Celia turned 35, Mission Z was ready to blast off. The launch platform was built off the side of the space station, and parts of the spacecraft were shipped from Earth and assembled on the platform. The space station crew would weld the pieces together and build the electrical systems, especially the light years mechanism and gravity sleep chamber. The platform would detach flaming from the space station after the launch and fall disintegrating into the atmosphere. The space station would also donate Celia 2 to the mission and collaborate with Earth on the 3 robots. The robots already existing on the space station also helped build the launch platform and helped assemble the ship. After 10 years of no contact with Earth, space shuttles were to be sent every 4 months with parts, supplies, and shared technological advances. Another main part of the mission would take place in the last year. Satellites would be set up on the moon and space station to link the space station to Earth and to the Zeus. 8 months after the crew for Mission Z arrived at the space station, 4 men would arrive to live on the space station with the other men and Celia. At this time, the crew for the spaceship would be evaluated by new criteria reached by examining the space station men on Earth. Anyone who did not fit the criteria or survive well in space the previous 8 months would be sent back to Earth on the shuttle, which brought the new 4 men. The 4 men consisted of 2 much-needed communications specialists for the satellite link-ups and computers, and 2 young, versatile scientists who were there to absorb and learn from the men on the space station, and to carry on the work of the 20 men when they died. All 4 men were in their teens, none younger than 16, and all were homosexual. It was the Council's thought that this would be the safest addition to the already existing space station members. Eventually, the space station would be expanded and colonized. From then on, the space station was a permanent fixture in the vastness of the universe. To show that they were serious about the necessity and longevity of the space station, the Council gave the space station a name because it was no longer just an experimental unit. They called her Aphrodite. The last 2 months before Mission Z, Aphrodite was crowded. 2 members of the 10-person crew were sent back to Soil because they caught a mental space sickness that blinds its victims through fear of the unknown. The idea of such a large hunk of metal floating around on a moon and all that infinite space can separate the mind from reality in 2 ways. Either one feels very small and not in control of their own fate, or one feels huge and feels like he is a god of all he pervades and master of the universe. The first unwarranted fear causes space blindness. The second fear causes hallucinations and can be harmful to the whole crew. The men sent back had Small's disease, Felix and Bertram. As a result, only 8 crew members would catapult into the Mission Z adventure. Even though 2 people left, there was only 25 sleep chambers on the space station and 33 humans. The last 4 months before Mission Z left for solar systems beyond, Celia felt her Aphrodite had been invaded, but everyone survived the ordeal. There were a few scuffles and angry words, but there were too many preparations to be made. Consequently, every person was too busy to fan any flames. The younger generation has arrived, boys, to displace us. We must teach them what we know, but they'll never replace us. Just like Celia, too, can never replace me. 8 of them will be off playing with the stars soon, but we will always be here, and this will always be our home. Now for those 4 fancy pants boys. I'll never understand them. They're nice enough, but why would they want another man when they could have me? I'm not just saying any woman, but me. They must have had a negative sexual experience with some coldfish or hot glitch. That's too bad. Perhaps it was the way they were raised, or do you think they were born that way? Who knows? As long as they are not snobbish, priggish flops or try to be fake or something, or get in my way, or try to take over my position here. I actually think they're nice guys. Who am I to judge? I don't like women much myself, but I wouldn't blame another woman if she fell in love with me. I'm actually surprised more have not in my lifetime. But then again, I'm glad they did not because I hate women so much. At least they agree with me about Ashley Thorndike. She is one pretentious, interbred glitch. Did you hear her when she said to Gunther Wong, "Oh, you're quite a mix. Our family is strictly blue blood ourselves. We don't agree with the Council's racial mixing proposition and hypothesis are congruous to pure humanity and breeding." What form of feces is that? And how do you like the way she fawns over Captain Phillips? Is that grotesque and obscene behavior, or am I just blowing stardust up my behind? Gunther is homosexual too. He's a sweetheart. I love how he gave Ashley a big wet kiss after she tried to insult him. I'd rather have a gay man than any type of woman around. Men are very loyal to each other. Women cheat on each other too much. We shall treat them as guests until we can treat them as sons. This is our home. I shall never go back to Earth. Running Tree has made me counsel for Aphrodite. I shall die here with those I love. And when other young creatures come to displace us, to keep our memories and knowledge after we are gone, they will be our children, and we will treat them as such. But those 8 reaching for the stars will travel longer than our children will live, and we will probably never hear the first message, but you can bet old Running Tree will. And that was all there was to be said about the changes going on around them. Radiation had ended Celia's chances for having children, so the council will send her new people to train and care for like her own. She would always consider the 20 original moon men her husbands, and she would remain loyal to them, as a true wife should. That's chapter 3. The next chapter, should I tell you? It's about the crew on Mission Z. You get to meet them. But ciao, Bellas.